Hello there and welcome back to another video here on Wrist Watch Revival. My name is Marshall. Thank you so much for coming along. This time on the bench, I've got this sweet Omega pocket watch. This watch dates to the late 30s and I got it off of eBay on a 4 parts only auction. And I got this watch for $68. But as you can see straight away, it's got, well, a missing crown. There's no winding crown on the top, and it looks like the stem may have just broken right off of there. So that's one problem. Also, it doesn't run at all. So we've got a bit of a project on our hands, and we're going to do what we always do on this channel. We're going to do our best to bring this little mechanical wonder back to life. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, I want to welcome you along. I'm really glad you're here. And don't worry, even if you're not that into watches, I hope you'll find something fascinating as we dive into the case back here. You know, what we do here is take a look inside. Ooh, that's pretty. Really pretty movement here. And then we're going to figure out what's wrong with it, and we're going to fix it and try to bring a little piece of history back. Uh-oh, that's not good news at all. So that part right there is the balance wheel. It's probably the most important part of the watch, and it should not wiggle around like that. When you see it able to wiggle around that much, it almost for sure means that the balance staff is broken. And the balance staff is, think of it like the axle for the balance wheel. And if the axle's broken, well, the wheel won't have anything to spin on, and the watch won't run at all. So that's something that we're going to have to look into. Boy, we've been here for about a minute. We've already found 2 problems with this watch. Now, there's always a risk. You know, I buy these watches off of eBay and they're advertised as non-running. The dial looks like it's actually in pretty rough shape too. It has some patina, let's call it, on it, but it also has some just outright wear with a little bit of the track missing and kind of a yellowy, dingy hue to it. Well, we'll take a look at that in a little bit as well. For now, let's just take off the hands so that we can continue to disassemble the watch. Pocket watches or wrist watches, we handle them the same. And we do something to them that you don't see very often these days. You know, we're not really about repairing stuff now. You know, most of the time, if you have an item like a watch or any electronics, think about it, anything like that, you just get a new one, right? Even if you take it to the place to get it repaired, they often just throw the one you have away and give you a new one. We're not doing that here. This is a little piece of history, right? I mean, Omega is a very prominent brand to this day in the watch space. And I want somebody to be able to enjoy this. You know, you can set up a pocket watch like this on your desk. Sure, people don't really carry them around anymore. That's fine. But, you know, you can set this up on your desk and you can hear it ticking away. You get to wind it up every day, and it has like kind of a soothing ritual around it with winding it up and then watching it kick up and keep time for you. Also, given how big these movements are, there's a couple of things to note. One, well, going back to the kind of nostalgia history factor, they're loud. Like you can actually hear them ticking. So if you like that sound, you can really get that out of it. Ooh, yeah, that parts of the dial look pretty rough. But the other thing is, being so big, if you're interested in getting into this hobby that I've fallen in love with, you know, they call it horology, right? The study of time. But, you know, watchmaking is the term for the professional watch repair, watch servicing, whatever you want to call it. If you want to get into it, a big pocket watch movement like this is a very good place to start. These movements are way bigger than their wristwatch counterparts, and that actually, when you're learning, really does make it easier to work on them. And as you can see, I have this really cool kind of dial holder thing that keeps it nice and suspended, and of course means that it won't get damaged while I'm working on the other parts of the watch. Okay, we can take the hour wheel off, and of course I like to just inspect the parts as I take them off to see if there's any obvious signs of wear, you know, anything broken or whatever. There's the cannon pinion. I use a special tool, a vintage tool actually that I got off of eBay and refurbished. That's kind of part of the fun of the hobby as well, is if you're the type of person that likes tools, like me, then this hobby certainly will not let you down. There are a lot of tools. Well, first off, there's a lot of tools that you need just to get started, but then even after you have kind of the basics down, there's infinite tools for you to get going forward. Let's start by taking the balance out. And normally I would say we'll take this out. That's right, so that it doesn't get damaged. But this one, as far as I can tell, is already toast. We'll take a close look at that in a minute too, just to make sure that that it's actually what I thought it was. And a quick check of the pallet fork reveals that it does snap back and forth. That is what we want to see. So that's promising. And I can even use a pin vise here to wind up the watch. And what that lets me do is what we call let down the mainspring. The mainspring's wound up, and it's where all the power for the watch comes from. And as you're taking apart a watch, you want to make sure that all that power's been let out. That way, when you take one little piece off, it doesn't unwind the whole thing in one swift motion, which can cause snapping or breaking, especially on vintage watches like this, where maybe the metal's a little bit fatigued. All right, we'll start off by removing the screws that hold down the ratchet wheel and the crown wheel. If you look closely, you'll also notice that the one on the crown wheel, this one right here, is actually a reverse threaded screw, which means it screws backwards from where you would expect. This is very common on Swiss movements. That's how I knew it was already before even having to try it. And now we can take out the ratchet wheel. All told, pretty dirty in here, but nothing terrible. I can work with this. Also, isn't that a gorgeous movement? Really just pops. This is called the click and the click spring that I'm going to take off now. This is actually the part of the watch that makes a sound when you wind it. And with that out of the way, we can take off the screws for the bridge that holds this all down. This is called the barrel bridge. And as you can see, it's the biggest bridge on the watch, and we can take off the bridge all at once. And that'll give us our first view into the train of wheels, at least part of them, not all of them. Yeah, not too bad. That comes off nicely. And we can remove the barrel. That has the mainspring in it. And here's that broken stem. It doesn't want to come out just yet. Fine. We'll just leave it in for now. No big deal. We can remove the other bridge now, though. This is what they call the train wheel bridge. This houses 3 jewels on top that act as the bearings for the train of wheels, which are the gears inside the watch. If you've ever wondered what's up with those jewels, by the way, they're made of synthetic sapphires. They're colored to look like rubies, but rubies and sapphires are basically the same thing fundamentally. And they have a hardness scale of 9. That's 1 below diamonds, which is the hardest. They're very, very hard. And the steel wheels inside, the pivots they call them, that's like the axle that I just grabbed right there, those have a hardness of about 7. So the bearing surface is harder than the axle, and what that means is that they don't rub off on each other. And basically, if they're lubricated properly, they can go for nearly forever. Okay, we've got most of the movement disassembled here as the train of wheels has already come out. This is called the pallet fork bridge. And you can see why that little part underneath is the pallet fork. And it comes out nicely. Yeah, things coming apart pretty well. We can flip the watch over now and take apart the keyless works. This is called the keyless works because pocket watches that are, quite a bit older than this used to have an actual key. Like you'd have to have a little separate key that would dangle, and you would put that into a hole, and then that would let you wind up the watch. But at some point, it was invented that you could use the crown that you set the watch to also wind it, but you didn't need the key anymore. Therefore, they were keyless. And that's what I'm taking apart here. This is the parts of the watch that let you wind and set the watch through that crown. Now, the problem is, one of the many issues with this watch is that it doesn't have a crown. It seems to have broken off. So we'll just take off the setting lever. The setting lever screw is actually on the other side of the movement. It's that kind of tall one that's sticking out there, the top. And we'll just unscrew it until the setting lever falls down to the bench, which there it is. And now we can take out the rest. So there's what's left of the stem. Again, that was broken off when the crown got snapped off, however that happened, however long ago. And there we go. One last thing to take apart here before the movement is completely disassembled and ready for a very thorough cleaning, of which it needs pretty badly, is the mainspring barrel. So we'll take that apart and see how it looks inside. Oof. Okay, that's a mess. Not only is there a bunch of grease and dirt, but that spring does not look uniform. Yeah. Oop. There we go. That's called the Barrel Arbor. As you can see, it's a dirty mess, so definitely going to go in the cleaning machine as well. And let's take out this spring and see what's going on with it, because just on a visual sense, that should be a nice flat concentric circles within that spring, and it looks like there's a bunch of space and dirt and stuff, and it just doesn't look right. Yeah, and I can already tell just removing it that it doesn't feel right coming out either. This is weird. Oh, okay. Well, there's part of it. It looks like it's actually broken, but it broke kind of upstream so that it would still work. Or maybe there's just an extra piece. I don't really know what's going on, but do you see how that spring is sticking up like that? That's not right. It's supposed to be flat. Yeah, no, that's definitely not supposed to do that. We'll address that in just a little bit. For now, let's get everything put into the watch cleaning machine. These little baskets keep all the small parts together, and then the bigger parts can go in the bigger basket like this. All right, so there we have it. Everything's ready for the watch cleaning machine. Before we throw that in though, let's take a quick look on the microscope, and yep, it's just as I thought. The balance staff is toast. That's supposed to be like a spike there, and it is gone. We're going to have to address that. But as we put things into the watch cleaning machine here, I did want to mention that I've got a Patreon for this channel. If you like what I'm doing here, that's a great way to support me over there. It's patreon.com/wristwatchrevival. And I particularly wanted to thank Zach, Trevor, Steven, Spencer, Ross, Robert, Ralph, Nico, NT, Mitchell, Michael, Mikey, Mark, Marcus, Kyle, Kim, Kevin, Jim, Jason, James, Jack, Hammond, Jerry, George, Franklin, Evan, Erica, Dustin, Drew, Dr. Unks, David, Cosmo, Corey, Colin, Chris, Chiseled, Brinton, Brian, Brett, Brad, Andrew, Alex, and Adrian for their support. Thank you very much, and I really do appreciate it. Take a look at the parts all laid out on the bench, and you can see that's everything. That's what makes up the movement of a watch when you look at it as a sort of destructed view. And all we have to do is put it back together. What could be so hard about that, right? Okay, well, we've got other things to address besides just the reassembly. And the first and most important one is going to be fixing this balance staff situation. So as we looked at on the microscope, the balance staff is broken. This was actually very common on watches of this era because they were not shock protected. They did not have a system that would allow a drop of the watch or a bang on the side of it to prevent that force from driving all the way through to the movement and then breaking off the very, very delicate balance pivot, which is exactly what happened on this watch. And we need to replace it. So first things first, we'll take the balance wheel away from the balance assembly. And now we need to take off the balance spring. I have some special pry bars for this. It's very delicate. If you slip with this and bend up that blue spring, you're done. You got to find a new one of those. And they're very, very delicate. They don't call it the hairspring for nothing. So we'll set that aside for safekeeping. And now I've got a special tool here that allows me to disassemble the rest of the balance. So first thing that we need to take off is what they call the roller right here. And boop, just like that, that's the roller. That is just friction fit, meaning it's just pressed on. So we've got that removed, but now the last part's kind of tricky. So there's the roller right there. It's got the jewel on it as well that we'll look at a little later when we're actually going to be installing the new parts. But now we have to take the old balance staff off. And how is it put onto the wheel? It's riveted, meaning it's the metal's banged into place and we need to undo that. So I've got this tool that's really great for undoing this. This outer shaft kind of holds everything in place, and then I can use a hammer boop, to just push out the old balance staff as gently as possible. And with the old balance staff out, that means, of course, that we can rivet in a new one. Does that sound scary to you? Because it sure does to me. I've done this a couple of times, but it involves hammers. And as you can see, the old balance staff is there with no pivots on the tips, but take a look. That's what it's supposed to look like with those metal pivots sticking out the tips. So we need to use my staking set for this, and we're going to take the new balance staff, and we're going to figure out which one of these holes it fits in. Just fits in. Oop, nope, there we go, that one. And then I can take what's called a centering punch, which is just one of these punches that has a very sharp tip on it. And that lets me rearrange this plate on the bottom and then lock it in with the wheel. And that way everything is aligned perfectly. Then I can take our brand new balance staff and put it in the hole that we chose before. And then I can take the wheel and place it over it. Now that piece of metal in the middle needs to get hammered down around the edges of it. And yes, this is as scary as it sounds, but here's how we do it. I'm going to take a punch that has a rounded bottom on it and make sure that it fits correctly. And I've got a wider rounded one, I've got a flat one, and I've got a narrower rounded one. Here's the wider rounded one. And I am going to take my hammer and very gently tap on it and then give it a twist until the middle part of that new balance staff starts to rivet itself into place on the new balance wheel. Now, if you hammer this too hard, the balance staff will simply split apart. I mean, it's a small piece of metal and you're sending quite a bit of power down through it. As you can see, it still hasn't really grabbed on, but there is a little bit of riveting happening. The thing that you have to keep in mind here as well is this rivet needs to be formed in a perfectly flat environment, because if it gets riveted on crooked, well, then the wheel won't spin true and the watch won't run at all. So this is a stressful and still relatively new territory for me. Like I said, I've only done this a few times on watches. So hold your breath with me and let's see if we get through it. As you can see, that rivet is starting to form now. And as I pick up the wheel, you can see that I've actually got a bit, it's grabbed onto the edges now. So now I'm going to switch over to the flat punch, which I'm hoping will then flatten out that rivet, pushing it towards the sides and kind of sealing it into place. Hey, there we go. The balance staff is installed, and as you can see, it's flat up against the wheel, which is exactly what we want. Now, first thing we'll do is just a quick test on the movement itself or on the plate. And this is going to just be to make sure that it spins correctly and that everything lines up and that the staff that I got is the right one. You know, I ordered it online. It said it was for this movement, but who knows? Ooh, that's a good start. So let's just grab an air blower and just see if this thing will spin freely. Ooh, that looks good. Wow. Look at it go. Yes, that is what we wanted to see. So already we've made a nice step towards getting this watch back in action, but now we need to put on the parts of the watch that we had taken off. So here's the impulse jewel. So we'll press that back onto place like that. Very gentle. And now we can put the spring back on as well, the balance spring. And again, you have to be very careful because with the new pivots there, you have to make sure that everything's lined up, because if you push down on one of the little pivots on the top, you're done. It'll just break right off. So this isn't quite aligned correctly. There we go. That's better. And then once again, I can simply press this onto place with my fingers. I don't need to use a hammer for this. Now, this does present a bit of an issue, though, because I have just pushed this spring back on kind of randomly. And what we need to have happen is we need certain parts of this balance to be aligned with certain other parts, and then we also need to be able to put the top part of the balance on and have that all work out together. So if you take a look here, do you see this triangle? And do you see this triangle? That triangle post goes into that hole on the top part. And as you can see, we need to move this over to here or else it won't sit properly. So what we're going to do is mark it. This is where I want that stud to be aligned with. Right now you can see it's almost on the opposite side. Now how do we do this? More tricky business. So we take a screwdriver and put it into what we call the collet. That's what actually holds the spring into place. And then we very, very gently turn until the stud gets lined up with the mark that I made on the rim of the balance. You can see the mark. It's at about 11 o'clock. And I went a little too far. There we go. So that's much better. That's much closer to how we want it. And that means that we can take a look at the top part here of the balance bridge. And look, there's a jewel setting under here that needs to be cleaned and lubricated. And we might as well do it now while we have everything apart, right? So we'll take off this little bottom plate. I've never seen one quite like this, but it's pretty self-explanatory how it works. And now the balance bridge should separate into a few different parts. As you can see, there's the kind of pointer stick that is for regulation here. And then there's the cap jewel here. And then there's a hole jewel underneath it. And as you can see, it really needs to be cleaned. There is dried on oil. This is very typical for watches like this. They get, serviced and lubricated, but then they sit in a drawer for 50 years and that oil dries up. And when it does, it becomes a very tacky, dust attracting surface that is really not good for the watch and usually makes it run off. So I'm going to put it in some solvent. It's called One Dip. And let's take a look. I think, let's see. Ooh, see there, that should be clean. And even after being in the One Dip, it needs to be manually clean. So I'm going to take some pegwood and just scrape off that extra oil. I mean, that's how caked on that can get, where you can put it in, so you can see it's already looking better. You can put it in literally in a solvent and it won't dissolve that, at least not in a shorter period of time. I'm also going to take the pegwood and just go ahead and give the pivot itself a little bit of cleaning. And then put them back into the One Dip solvent. And after a short soak, we can take them out. And the solvent evaporates fairly quickly. And let's take a look at this jewel now. There we go. See, a perfectly clean, flat surface. Way better than before. Now I can actually oil it. I'm going to put some light viscosity oil right in the center of it. And it'll kind of just suspend itself there. And then I can reassemble the balance. And this is a little bit tricky because you can't be sloppy with this. If you miss, you will displace that oil, which needs to sit right above the hole. And if it no longer does, well, then you have to redo the whole thing again anyway. But I'm getting good at it. And that was a pretty good shot for a first attempt. Now I'm going to kind of hold everything down with pegwood and then grab my screwdriver to refit this bottom plate to kind of hold everything in place. There we go. And the regulator arm's a little out of whack here, but I can just move it back over like that. Okay, so now we've got the balance bridge ready for the balance wheel. This is a lot of work. I know, replacing the balance staff is really no joke. It requires quite a bit of very small, finicky things, including screwing down this little tiny screw like that. And now we can put it on the watch. So we're going to test a couple of things here. The first one is just to make sure that it still works, like that with the spring in place and with the jewel and everything, that there's nothing hitting or moving. So we'll just give it a quick test with some air. Beautiful. That is exactly what we wanted to see out of this. You can see the wheel is spinning wonderfully, but we've got a job to do here. So if you look carefully between those two brass posts right there, do you see that white jewel sticking down? That's the impulse jewel. And that needs to line up right in between those two posts when the watch is at rest, meaning when there's no forces on it at all, it needs to land exactly there. And that's what we were lining up earlier with that post on the top and the pen and the whole rigmarole there. So I'm going to give this a couple blows from the air blower, and we're going to see where it lands naturally. And we're hoping that it'll land as close to right in between those posts as we can get. Okay, looking pretty good. You can see the jewel certainly in that neighborhood. Letting it come to a stop naturally. Good. Hey, that's pretty good. We're at a little bit of an angle, but check that out. It's right in between. And that means that we got a pretty good shot on it. And that is what will create the beat error, which we'll look at in a little bit when we test the watch after we get it running again. Now take a look at this mainspring. It is a total mess. So I've gotten a new one for it. That spring is bent, it's crooked, and it stands up too high. And there's another problem with it. I noticed when I took out the spring, take a look at how low the other spring I was using was sitting in the barrel. Do you see how low that sits? Right there, there's all this space up to the barrel wall. It should actually fit in there. So let's see if the new spring, oh, I love that sound, is a better fit. Yeah, see, that's how it's supposed to look, where the cap can still come on, but the new spring, it's actually a very old spring. This is a vintage spring for this watch, but it has never been used before. Looks like it fits in there properly. So with that in place, we can put in the Barrel Arbor. This grabs onto that inside hook of the spring and lets you wind it up. And then we can put the cap on the barrel. And I can just push down on the sides of this little tool to secure the cap into place and maybe even get a little bit of help with my fingers here. And there we go. We have a ready to go assembled barrel. So we'll set that aside. And I just wanted to show you, this is a watch movement from a watch that I've worked on a few times. This is an Elgin A11. Did you see how much smaller it is than this huge pocket watch movement? This is why I recommend working on these pocket watches at first, because you just have so much more space to work and to see, you know, with your eyes, what's going on and all that kind of stuff. Because that other thing was a movement that's like not that much bigger than just the barrel bridge on this watch. Okay, so now it's time to start reassembly of this watch, and we'll see if we can get it running, and if so, how well. And we're going to start off with the train of wheels. This is the escape wheel first, and now we're going to put in the third wheel. This is the fourth wheel. Make sure everything's lined up and has the pivots in their jewel holes. Like that. And now we can take the center wheel. I'm going to put a little tiny bit of oil on it just so that it gets lubricated properly. And we'll set it into place right there in the middle. And I'm going to take just a little bit of grease to put around the edge of where the setting lever screw goes. This oftentimes needs to be put into place before you put on any of the bridges on the top. In this case, it actually doesn't need to, but I just decided to anyway, I guess. So first things first, we'll put the barrel bridge into place. And I'm just going to take a piece of pegwood to apply a little bit of light pressure to the top so that I can get everything seated correctly. Like that. And then we can screw it down into place. Now we can put the train wheel bridge on, which is a tricky operation. All three of those pivots on the top have to go through those jewel holes on the top while staying engaged with the jewel holes on the bottom. If any one of them is out, you won't be able to screw down the bridge, And if you try to, and when any one of them is out, you will break the one that's out. But as you can see, you can even see the pivot sticking through the top of the jewels there as I finally got this plate nicely into place. A quick test also shows that sure enough, all the wheels are spinning freely, which is exactly what you want to see. Nice. So now we can screw this down. Like that. And then one more quick check just to make sure that everything looks good, and perfect. Looks beautiful. Now I'm going to take a little bit of medium viscosity oil here and oil the Barrel Arbor where it meets up with the plate. And what I'm going to do is actually apply some pressure with my oiler so that the oil has a chance to flow in between the two surfaces there. And I can even just give it a quick turn to make sure that the oil is distributed. Same thing here, just a little bit of HP 1300 is the name of the oil. If you're looking to get into the hobby, that's the one I'm using here. And then I can put on the crown wheel. And again, this is a screw that reverse threads, and you can see also that it has 3 stripes on the top. That's an indicator that it's a reverse threaded screw. Not all reverse threaded screws have that, but anything that does have that is a reverse threaded screw. Okay, so we'll tighten that down. And now I can put the click spring and the click in place, and then the ratchet wheel will go in. Really curious to see if I can get this watch running again. Needed some fairly major surgery and a good cleaning. Okay, so we'll get the click spring into place as well as the click. There we go. And just make sure that the click's working correctly before I grab the ratchet wheel. The ratchet wheel is kind of interesting. If you look in the center, it's actually a square, and that's to fit over the Barrel Arbor top, which is also a square. And then I can just screw this down to make sure that it's in place properly. And with that, we're getting actually fairly close to seeing if this thing will run. We'll flip the movement over and concentrate on the keyless works and the motion works. I told you what the keyless works were earlier, but if you've never heard of the motion works, that's actually the part of the watch that guides the hands themselves so that they display time properly. And also it's the part of the watch that's job is to let you set the hands. So now we can put the clutch wheel and the sliding clutch into place after some lubrication. It's a grease. That blue stuff that you see me using is a grease. It's actually the highest viscosity stuff that I use. This is like the heavy duty stuff, if you will. And now I can take the yoke and put it into place. And it actually engages with the sliding clutch, but I'm going to move it out of the way because I would like to put a little bit of grease on there first so that that yoke isn't just doing metal on metal whenever we use that part of the watch. And here's a little bit of HP 1300 before we put on the cannon pinion. This is friction fit, so we just have to press it down with a sturdy pair of tweezers like that. And now we can put just a little bit of 1300 where the intermediate wheel and the hour wheel and the minute wheel go. This is the intermediate wheel here, and then the minute wheel will go next to it. Right there. Again, this is how we set the watch. Now the yoke spring can go into place. This is a spring that has a tendency to fly. So I'm going to use this black stick to make sure that it does not do so. Okay, that looks good. Now the setting lever can go into place. And we'll make sure to lubricate the high friction parts where the setting lever and the yoke spring, the yoke actually touch. After doing that, we can put on the setting lever spring, which is kind of a funny looking spring. It actually serves multiple purposes on a watch. Primarily, though, it's a spring for the setting lever to be able to go from the winding to the hand setting position back and forth. Like if you've got a watch, you know, when you pull out the crown and it kind of goes click, and now you can set the hands and then you push it back in and it goes click, and now you can wind it. That spring is what makes that click happen. And I just need to make sure that it's engaged with the setting lever like that. There we go. And then I can, once again, put a little bit of grease in where that setting lever is going to engage with it. Right there. Okay, so that looks good. Do a quick test, put it into winding to setting lever, or setting position, hand setting to winding, and just make sure that everything's lining up, and it looks good. Okay, so that means that we can put in the pallet fork. And once we've got the pallet fork in, take a deep breath. That's when we can put in the balance and see if this thing will actually run. So let's put in the pallet fork. Wait, what the? Why is that rocking back and forth like that? That should be flat. What is going on with this thing? Oh, it's bent. I didn't even notice that when I took it out. And oh no. If I look at it on the microscope, the jewel is cracked too. It's shattered. Oh, that sucks. That means I'm going to have to order a new one of those. Well, that happens sometimes in watchmaking. I'm going to have to set it aside on the bench. But hey, while I have it on the microscope, let's oil up the jewels. Might as well. This is an exercise in restraint. You're basically using such a tiny amount of oil. You want it to suspend itself on the jewel between the metal pivot and the jewel itself. But it's very easy to use too much oil in a situation like this, and in fact ends up being kind of the default. There we go. That's on the center wheel. This is the escape wheel. You can see some of the jewels that they used back then were clear. That was actually common. You have to change the chemical component of the jewel when you make the synthetic rubies to make them red. You can also make them blue or keep them clear. Okay, and again, while we're here, we might as well get the bottom capsule setting. This was, remember the part that we took apart on the top and we had to put it in the solvent and do all that? This is the same thing. It's just the bottom of it. Oh, where did that screw go? There it is. Okay. Close call. We're fine. We're fine. Everything's okay here. Nothing to see. So this is the bottom capsule setting, and it needs the same treatment as the top. We need to clean it, lubricate it, and put it back into place. But as you can see, it's a lot simpler because it's easier to access on the bottom of the movement than it is on the balance. So a quick dip in the solvent, and we'll put a little bit of lubricant on it like we did before. Just a dot. And then we'll take it, carefully flip it over. Very carefully. Oh, careful. If you bump the walls, it'll screw up the placement of the oil. And if I can gently, there we go. That's more like it. And we can put this capsule into place. And that way, we'll have cleaned and lubricated jewels on both the top and bottom of the balance, which will give it the best chance to spin nice and freely and run very strong. So we'll put this back into place. And now, ta-da, we have our new part in the mail. Yes, it took like a month to arrive from Europe. But here it is. It's here. So this is the new, old, used, but still new to us with jewel intact pallet fork bridge. So we can once again put the pallet back into place. And here's where the nerves kick up again, because really curious to see if we get this thing running or not after having replaced the balance staff and have to do all the stuff to make sure that the jewels align properly and everything like that. Okay, that looks about right. So we can go ahead and put the pallet fork bridge into place. Okay. You can see the movement cleaned up beautifully. It really is a nice looking movement. Okay, so let's wind up the watch. And what that will do is put power from the mainspring barrel all the way through those train of wheels in the middle that we put in and down to that. And that's what we want to see. Remember, this is how it was at the beginning, where when we just lightly touch the sides of the pallet, it boop, jumps over on its own. And that's exactly what we want. So now we have reached the moment of truth. We've got the balance, and we're going to put it into place and see if this watch will run. Oh, look at that. It kicked right up. Oh, if that isn't the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Oh, look at it go. Oh, you love to see it. And it's even picking up some steam here as it gathers momentum. We can even put a full wind in the watch. You know, when you wind up your watch all the way, it actually produces more power than not. And look at it. So beautiful. And you can hear it too. Listen. Oh, that makes me so happy. We have a running watch again now. Let's see how well it runs. First off, though, we'll stop at our demagnetizer just to make sure. Click. That's all you have to do to demagnetize it. I got this vintage demagnetizer at a local watch shop. Pretty cool. And now we can put it on the time grapher. This measures how well the watch is running. So the rate is the most important thing on the left. And it is at, hey, not too bad. Plus 13 seconds a day. Decent amplitude at 276, and the beat error is 0.5 millisecond, which is not too bad at all. We'll need to make some adjustments though to see how good we can get this. So I'm just going to kind of let it go here and make some adjustments to regulate it. Ooh, the amplitude's getting up a little further, and look where we got it. Over 300 degrees of amplitude and only 3 seconds a day, including 2 of those were only 1 second off per day. And that's awesome. So the movement is done. It's good to go. But of course, we are not done with this watch because we have more work to do. First thing I'm going to do is take a look at this dial. Now, I like to have a light touch when I work on dials. The most I'll usually do is just do like a light cleaning. And that's what I'm going to do here. This dial is pretty dingy, but it has kind of a cool color to it. So I'm just going to use some water and some light, soft, synthetic swabs here to just sort of take away maybe some of the bigger pieces of dirt or grime that have collected on it. So just giving it the good once over. But also I'm noticing that some parts of it are actually cleaning up nicer than others. And that isn't really what I wanted. And you can see there's some parts that have cleaned up. And now I feel kind of compelled to clean up the whole dial. And I never really want to find myself in that position. This is why I try to have such a light touch, is I don't want to have to do it this way. But after cleaning it for quite a while, this is what I came up with. And it's okay. I think it looks kind of cool. Like it has like kind of that champagne color back to it again. But I'll be honest, I think if I just would have left it alone, I would have been happier. And that's often the case, which is why I try to do so little. But you can't really predict what a dial is going to do. And this one just kind of needed the full cleaning. I really didn't feel good about leaving it halfway. So now We'll put the case components in the ultrasonic cleaning machine. This is a non-abrasive way to clean watch parts, watch components, that type of stuff. And after it's sat in there for a good long while, we'll pull that out and have all the parts done and cleaned up and ready to go for that. Quite a project we've got on our hands here, but I really want to get this thing looking and running awesome again, because I just think it would be such a cool little piece of history. Now we can replace the crystal, and I'm going to use my rober press. And as you can see on the bottom, you actually want to take a soft topped base. And then on the top, you want to take one of these aluminum dies, and you want that to be just about the same size as the crystal that you're going to replace. Now, this is the old crystal, but same difference. They're the same size. And then I can move this die into place. And then as you can see, the ring, the bezel that they're going to go into is below. Here's the watch crystals that I bought. I always buy the size that I think it is, and then one step bigger as well, just in case I'm wrong. Because if it's too small, it won't work. But if it's too big, you can make it fit. So we're going to start off with, well, one of them, I guess the size that I thought it was. And what's going to happen here is it goes on the post on the bottom, the soft post. And then I'm going to use the wheel to gently press down on it. And what it's going to do is it's going to bend the sides of this crystal inwards. It's a acrylic crystal, so it actually is flexible a little bit. And then I'm going to bring the bezel up so that it's seated within the edges of it like that. And then I can just simply unwind the top and the crystal will expand into the bezel, and that's it. I just wanted to show you this because this is one of the things that's actually pretty easy once you get used to it. And look at that, a brand new crystal. So that's looking good. Take a quick look at the rest of the case. Yep, looks nice and shiny. Good to go. I'm happy with that. And now we can start the actual casing process. So first we'll put the movement in to the main part of the case. And I got a new stem and a new crown for this watch. But as you can see quite easily, as I put the stem in, it's way too long. And so in order to fix that, well, we're going to have to trim the stem down. So first we'll measure how much of the stem we'd like to trim. It looks like it's 4.4 millimeters. Then we'll put the stem and the crown into a pin vise so that we can remove the crown. And then, of course, we need to mark it out. And how many of you know what I'm going to say here? Measure twice, cut once, right? If you've ever done anything like this, you know that you really don't want to overcut this because then you've basically ruined it. So look at where I cut it. See how I've left myself some space there of the black that I marked on there? That's on purpose. That way I can slowly file or maybe trim it, cut it down one more time, or maybe even another time after that to make sure that I get it to the correct length. Because if you do too much, then it's useless. It actually won't function anymore because the crown will bump up against the case and it won't let it fully engage with the keyless works. So let's put it back on and take a quick test just to see how it does. And I'm anticipating that this one will be a little bit too long. And it is. Just put it into place, but yeah, so you got a little gap there. And that's what I expected. So we'll take it back out again and we'll go ahead and keep trimming it down. But this time we're going to trim just little tiny bits at a time because, like I said, we really don't want to overdo this. So a little tiny bit, then get the burrs off with a file, test fit it again. Not quite there. Do it one more time and then we'll test fit it yet again and see if we've got it correct. Hey, we do. That looks much, much better. And we can secure it into place. And now we have replaced the stem and the crown. So that's good to go. And the only thing left to do is the final touches on getting this thing cased up. We'll put the hour wheel in. We've got a dial washer. That just keeps the hour wheel pushed down. Then we can put the dial on. Screw it into place. And this is exciting. We're almost finished with this project. Bringing another watch back to life, and hopefully somebody can enjoy this. Like I said, it's just a cool thing to have. You know, you can throw it on your desk, you can throw it on your bedside table, and hear it ticking. Sometimes that helps people sleep. We'll use some case screws here to make sure that the movement's in place, and now we can put the hands back on as well. These are beautiful hands, by the way. You can see how they're blued, and that's actually done by taking steel, like these are made out of, and you put them in a bed of brass, like shavings basically, and then heat it up. And when it gets to the right temperature, it will actually naturally turn that blue color. It's a very difficult to reproduce color. It has an almost purplish tone. And they did these the good old-fashioned way when they made these watches. They heat blued them, as it's called, and I love it. I think it just adds such a cool contrast. You can even see that it kind of changes color. It turns like a purple near the where the hand connects. Really cool. Minute hand goes on now. Of course, we have to make sure that these are aligned properly, and also that they don't hit anything if they touch each other, if they bump up against one of the numbers or whatever. That can actually just stop the whole watch. So got to make sure. Now the second hand can go on. Doop, just like that. And the last thing to do is to put the bezel on the front and the case back on the back, and then we are finished with this project. What a fun one to work on. A really cool pocket watch from a really prominent company then and now. Omega's still going very, very strong. They sell a ton of watches. They're really popular. James Bond wears them. I mean, they are just a huge brand still, and it was really cool to get to restore this pocket watch from them. I want to thank you once again for hanging out with me and going on this journey. I hope you learned something and had some fun along the way. If you want to find me on Instagram, I'm wristwatch_revival over there, and I post pictures of in-between project updates and some watches for my collection, that kind of stuff, and you can pop over and say hi. Thanks again for hanging out. We'll see you next time.